And so if there's tension in your office, and if there's not positivity, and there's not those things, not only do your staff feel it, the patients feel it, the new people coming in feel it. It was a study down in the 1950s. It was Stanley Milgram's shock experiment. And what happened was they took volunteers and they took them into a room, and the guy you see on the top right there, they hooked him up to a bunch of electrodes, and they said, hey, this other volunteer is gonna ask you some Trivial Pursuit questions, and if you get them right, great. If you get it wrong, he's gonna shock you. But every wrong answer, he's gonna increase the voltage. This will be fun. You can quit when you want. Welcome. And so then they took the other guy into the other room, and they sat him in front of the machine with the boxes, and the only other person in the room with him was somebody in a very official-looking lab coat, kind of looking like a dentist, to be honest. And the experiment began. And so eventually the guy gets one wrong, and what do? They start at 15 volts. Bzz, and it's kind of fun. The guy's like, ouch, you know. And some of you are thinking, I would love to play this game. And so eventually the shocks get more intense to the point where the guy getting shocked says, hey, you know what? No, that's enough. I quit. I want out. And the guy doing the shocking feels a little bit relieved. Like, who wants to inflict pain on innocent people? Oh, you are dentists, I guess. But just a joke. I'm just kidding with you. I know that's a sensitive thing. Anyway, so he turns to the researcher and he says, hey, he wants to quit. And the researcher would simply say, it's imperative that the experiment continue. Administer the shock. And this kept going. In fact, just to make you feel better, no one was actually being shocked. It was an actor in the room. But they didn't know that. But do you know what? Not one person quit shocking before 300 volts. And 2/3 went right to the end, 450 volts. And the person wasn't even responding. They didn't even know if he was alive. No answer. That's a wrong answer. 450 volts. So this freaked people out, right? Like, what is wrong with us? But what they found after doing some other variations of the experiment was that what was going on there was it was all due to the presence of authority in a room telling them to do it. And this reveals something that whenever I'm teaching leaders, I try to explain this, get this across, that when you are a leader, you have the power of what we call a weighted relationship. And it's weighted by society. We have been taught from the time we were little to obey authority. And that's why people in authority have always been a big part of our life. Teachers, coaches, bosses. And now you're that boss. And so your life carries more weight. When you show up to the clinic, everybody sits up a little bit straighter. If you come in and let's say you're in a bad mood, not that that would happen, but if you were, it casts a longer shadow. But where I want to address this group, I want to talk to the providers for a moment. Because I find this when I go to medical clinics. Pretty much every doctor did not go into medicine to be a leader. They went in to practice medicine. But one of the things that they realize later on is that, oh, but I also have to be a leader because I carry this great weight. And usually their name is on the door, and there's just a societal weight that comes with your role. And so the office manager has weight, but often the provider from a societal place has even more weight. Even though you might not want that, doesn't matter what you want, it's just there. And so what happens is you kind of have this team dynamic. Think of it like this way. The office manager is a little bit like the mountain guide leading the team up the mountain. You're picking your route. It's strategic. You got a line. Everybody's following. Everybody's clipped in. You're kind of motivating people. But then so this is the office manager. But then you've got the provider. And the provider's a little bit like the weather. The weather trumps the route, as we found out yesterday, right? The weather's powerful because it's just that extra weight. And so, but when the two work harmoniously, when there's good weather and when there's a good route, amazing things happen. Now, here's the thing. This is why office managers and providers always have to be on the same page and in sync, even relationally. Have you ever gone someplace and you're like, there's not a good vibe here? Or have you ever walked into a clinic and you're like, there's not a good vibe here. There's some tension here. There's some science behind that, by the way. There was some fascinating, groundbreaking research done about good vibes and about chemistry. And what they did, this is going to gross you out a little bit, especially the women. They had a bunch of men watch scary movies. Then they had some other men watch movies that were just flat out disgusting. I mean, basically just watching movies that we always watch. And then they took their t-shirts off and they got a bunch of women, and the women would smell the t-shirt. I know. I mean, guys, we do this all the time. It's how we know what's clean and what's not. But I know, ladies, this is like new for you. Who goes into these experiments anyways? I don't know. But here's what was crazy. If the guy was watching a scary movie and the woman smelled his t-shirt, the facial expression was fearful. If it was a disgusting movie, her facial expression was one of disgust. And they did this later with positive. If it was a positive thing, then it brought about positive emotions. In other words, what they have long known about animals is now we know this true to be about humans, that we release these chemical signals. And that creates an environment. And so if there's tension in your office, and if there's not positivity, and there's not those things, not only do your staff feel it, the patients feel it, the new people coming in feel it. So really, providers and office managers must work together. And I want to give you 3 big ideas today, okay?